Welcome to the Introduction to College Level Research. We're going to go over quiz 1 today. And I'm going to start though with talking about the quizzes themselves and giving you a quick overview. In this semester, the rest of the semester that we have, these next 5 weeks, you've got 5 quizzes that are going to basically cover the 5 different, can you guys see the arrow on that? I don't know. The 5 different modules that are in this course, starting with this week, getting started with research, which is going to give you that bird's eye view of the entire course itself. Then next week we're going to talk about locating information. Module 3 is about the search techniques that you're going to use. 4 is about how do you evaluate the information that you're finding on the internet. And then 5 is how do we as academics and researchers use that information ethically, especially so that we don't get sued, right? Okay. So a thing about the quizzes, you need to complete them in sequential order. If you haven't done so already, in order to access quiz 1, you need to have 100% on your syllabus quiz. Those of you that haven't done the syllabus quiz yet, please get that going right away because you're going to need it in order to do quiz 1 starting tomorrow, okay? You want to work at a pace of a minimum of 1 quiz per week. And the reason why is because the quiz door opens, and then by Wednesday next week, you will no longer have access to quiz 1. So you've got to complete your quiz, your 3 tries before that door closes, okay? Now, a minimum is the slowest pace. For some of you, you may already have tests, quizzes, other things going on. If you want to take these quizzes early, you are more than welcome to do so. Okay, the other thing is each quiz is worth about 20 points and you get 60 minutes. Actually, we increase that to 90 minutes per quiz. You need to score 16 points, which is 80% or higher, in order to progress past the quiz and get on with the class, okay? Now, we don't round up. So if you get a 15.75, you can't unlock the next quiz on the sequence. So only passing the quiz at 16 points or higher is going to unlock your next quiz. But don't worry, because like we said again, you get 3 attempts per quiz. A new attempt does mean though you need to redo the quiz, but that's okay, because each time you redo it, I guarantee you that you're going to even learn more, okay? These are open note, open book, open friend, open classmate. You just need to get that information and pass those quizzes, okay? Now, if you still can't pass after 3 attempts, we want you to contact your instructor. Some of you may not attend all the quiz review sessions. The first thing, after 3 attempts, if you can't pass, view the quiz review session again, and also contact your instructor to let them know that, you're ready for the next steps. You'll work this out with your instructor and determine what the next course of action will be. Okay, some other things and tips. Don't use a tablet or your phone for the quiz. Some students also have trouble using Safari on their quiz. So if you're having trouble accessing your quiz, do it on a computer. If you don't have a computer available to you at home, you can check one out at Tech Lending in the library or use a library computer for your quiz, okay? You want to read the questions carefully. As you'll see, if you're really tired and you do a quiz, you may misread what it's asking for you. So go slow. I've also had students take their quizzes in the middle of another class and not pass it. So I highly suggest don't take your quiz in the middle of the class. Limit, box off some time, like an hour, and just focus on your quiz so you can do it well, okay? Do what the question asks you to do. Sometimes it's going to ask you to leave that quiz page, open another tab, and go to a different website. We really want you to do that. We don't want you guessing. These quizzes are more about skills. So think about the difference between taking your driver's test on a multiple choice quiz and being behind the wheel. We want you behind the wheel. So there's going to be questions that will ask you to actually pull up a database or to search for certain things. We want you to actually do that. That's why all of the quizzes are open note, okay? We also want you to use all 3 quiz attempts to get 20 points, the maximum amount of attempts as possible, of quizzes as possible. And here's the reason why, okay? 80% of your quiz is based on the final, and you can get a maximum of 50 points on that. 20% of your grade is based on 100 points from your quizzes. Now, you need a total of 60% to pass a total grade of 60%. If you score 100% on all of your quizzes, the amount you need in order to pass the class, the amount of points you need on your final, is actually going to be less. Let me show you what I mean. So if you get 80 to 83 total points on all your quizzes, you're going to need 28 points on your final in order to pass the class. But if you get all 100 points on your quizzes, 100%, you only need 25 points. You only need to pass 50% of the final in order to pass the class. Now, this is splitting hairs. We've had students where this has happened, where they've had to retake Lib 1600 because they didn't have like 1 quiz point, or they passed by such a small percentage. It was really, really close. We want you to be able to get the most points as possible. That's why you get 3 quiz attempts. Use all 3 to get those 100 points, okay? Anybody have questions on that? And if not questions, if I could just get some thumbs up from you so that I know that it's understood, or if you're still confused, unmute your mics or type in the chat so I know. Thank you, Garen. Understood? Great. Selena, awesome. And again, if there's any questions, unmute your mic or you can ask in the chat, okay? All right, I'm going to keep going. If you're still confused, or once you finish and you still have questions on it, reach out to your instructors. All of the sections except for the in-person section, I believe, are graded the same way. So if you don't understand from this video, go ask your instructor about that, okay? All right, I'm going to keep moving on. Thanks for the affirmations, everybody. Okay, so this is kind of faded. It's going to show when you get my slides, but when you finish your first quiz attempt and when you're ready to take your final, we want you to be able to access your past quiz attempts, because you'll be able to see which quiz questions you got wrong so that you can study them to get them right the next time, okay? So this will show you how to do it. Again, you'll get the slide. It's also in your Start Here module as well under the quiz page, but this is one of the best ways to actually study for your quizzes, is to view your past attempts. It's also a good way to make your final notes. All right. There are 2 ways that students tend to study for this class that I'm going to suggest to you, okay? The first is, as you've noticed in Module 1, there are interactives. We want you to do those interactives, click on the answers, read the explanations. A lot of students learn from doing the interactives. Once you do the interactives, read what you need to, because usually the interactives come first, the explanation comes second. Take your notes, make note, ask questions, and then on Monday, which was yesterday, you can take your first attempt. This is only one way that students do this, okay? It doesn't mean you have to, but a suggestion, all right? And then Tuesday, you study the missed questions, you come to the quiz review exam, you get help. Or like I said, you reach out to your instructor, go to office hours, okay? Wednesday, take the second and third attempt. Try and get those maximum amount of points possible. That's one way to do it. The other way is read and do the interactives. Do both. Tuesday, study those missed questions. If you do your attempt, study the missed attempts on your interactives. Get the help you need. Come to the quiz review sessions. Ask those questions there. Tuesday, take your first attempt right after this review session so it's fresh in your head, okay? And then Wednesday, study those missed questions and take your second and third attempt, okay? I always suggest taking your first attempt early. Don't wait until the last minute. And there's a couple reasons why. One is it's a great study tool, that first attempt anyway, along with those interactives. The other reason is if it is 11 o'clock before the deadline when the quiz closes and you take your first attempt and you don't pass, you don't have very much time left before the quiz closes. And we don't want that. We want you to have time to go get the help that you need in whatever form that is, okay? So that's the reason why we suggest being able to take your quizzes early so you have that time to plan ahead. All right, now you're going to, let's see. Sierra asked, are all 3 attempts different or are they all the same? They are different. There will be some questions that are the same. There will be different versions of the same question that tests for the same skill. So this is the reason why you can view your past attempts. This is really about understanding the content behind what you missed so that you are able to do the quiz question again, okay? It's different because, you think about a driving test, right? Everybody should be able to do a 4-point stop sign, right? 4 stop signs at an intersection. But if you go on a driving test, that intersection may change. The skills of understanding that are the same, but the intersection has changed. It's going to be the same for your quiz questions. You're going to encounter names and vocabulary and topics that may not be familiar to you, but this is just like what you would encounter in an undergraduate class anyway. What we're going to teach you is, even if it's unfamiliar, how do I find the information I need? How do I understand that information so that I can discuss this topic at a scholarly level? Okay, so that's the reason why, the quiz attempts, the quiz questions do get changed up. They do get mixed up. The skill set is still the same though. Okay, other questions, anyone? Okay, so as you see in the slides, I want you to be able to do the slides, okay? So this is the question. Determine which of the following statements are true for primary sources. I'm going to start the question now. And as you can see, there's a join code up at the top. When you type that in, you should have access to this question, okay? So go ahead and answer it, everyone. And again, let me go ahead and read it out loud too. Determine which of the following statements are true for primary sources. A, generally the first sources available for describing an event or research project. B, the best type of source to use to gain information. C, analyze other sources and put them in context. Or D, if they fit the right topic, can be useful for scholarly research. How's everybody doing? Go ahead and attempt it. It's a really, really good way to study for this quiz, by the way, is to see how many of these you can get correct. So this is also a really good way, to see what you need to brush up on, okay? And by the way, there is more than one answer on this. Okay, everybody ready? All right. So I see all of you got D. If they fit the right topic, can be useful for scholarly research. Good job on that one, okay? Most of you, though, missed A. Is that showing correct? No, there we go, okay? Which is generally the first sources available for describing an event or research project, okay? So let's talk about this for a minute. And by the way, this is very similar to what you're going to get on the quiz, okay? primary sources of information, when I think primary, I think first. So it's the first information that comes out from an event, the very, very first thing. Okay, so it's the first step in the first pictures that come out from the witnesses that were there, the first newscasters that show up on the scene and report about the information. They're eyewitness accounts, so people who are actually there who are telling the story, okay? It's the first social media that comes out from the people that are at the event. These are your primary sources. Now, primary sources are really great for getting the initial perspectives that have happened at the event. It can get at, what people experienced at the event. It can get at some of the behind the scenes of what some of the thoughts were, some of the setup and things like that. However, primary events, like primary sources, I would say offer a point of view of the event itself. They offer a certain perspective of the event. Secondary sources, which we're going to talk about in a minute, can give you more perspectives, can give you more information because they happen after the event has occurred. Okay? Questions on this one? All right, I'm going to keep going then. So let's talk about the second one, right? So, based on what we just talked about, which of the following is a primary information source? And again, I'm going to just tell you there's more than one answer to this one, okay? And remember, based on what we just said, Ciara, awesome. Are you able to access Top Hat? If not, it's fine if you answer in the meeting. Totally fine. I'm just curious because this is a new tool for me to try too. Oh, you guys are good. Very, very, very good. Okay. You have another instructor that does Top Hat as well? Ciara? Oh, okay. Okay, ready? All right. Okay, so most of you answered the eyewitness report and the journal article written by a researcher about their study. Nice job, okay? Now, textbook. Why is this not a primary source? Textbooks get published almost over a year, at least over a year after an event happens. And part of that reason, which we're going to talk about when we go into scholarly materials, is that it takes time to actually create textbooks, okay? Textbooks synthesize from primary sources, but they're more of a summary from these primary sources within a certain context. Okay, so remember, primary source is first at the scene, right? So the first few days, hours, minutes when an event just happens. A textbook is far after that. Same with an encyclopedia article. An encyclopedia article, again, is a conglomeration of different primary sources that people have synthesized and summarized so that you can understand it as a reference source, right? Reference sources are usually not primary sources of information unless it's like D, a journal article written by a researcher about their study. In that sense, it's an eyewitness account, right, of the research that's happening in their lab or, wherever they are, okay? Questions on this one? Okay. If I go too fast, you can go ahead and just type in chat or you can unmute your mic, okay? Awesome, Garen. If it's making sense, that's fantastic. All right, now we're going to go into secondary sources. All right, ready? Okay. And we've been talking a little bit about secondary sources already after going through those primary ones. So determine which statements are true for secondary sources. Generally, the first source is available for describing an event or research project. B, always the best type of source to gain information. C, analyze other sources and put them into context. And or D, if they fit the right topic, they can be useful for scholarly research. So if primary sources are the first ones out at an event, secondary sources must be... And again, if you want to answer in chat, totally fine with me, okay? But I would like you to answer because this is a good exercise for you and it gives you a feel for what the quizzes are going to be like. Okay. Some of you said A, some of you said B, some of you said B and C, C and D. Okay. All right. So the first one, A, the first sources available describing an event. Remember, the first is a tip-off. It's primary sources, okay? Always the best type of information used to gain, the best type of source to gain information. I'm glad you didn't fall for that because it depends on your research project. In some cases, your research project may need primary sources as the best source of information. In other cases, it may be secondary. So it depends on your assignment, okay? A lot of you, most of you, went analyze sources and put them into context. Absolutely. The textbook analyzes these other sources, puts them into context, right? Blogs tend to be secondary sources too if they're synthesizing from multiple sources of information. So the tip-off for a secondary source is if it occurs after the event and it's discussing or talking about primary sources, it's a secondary source. It comes second after the first pieces of information that come out, okay? And then again, you see D, both primary and secondary sources, if they fit the topic, right, they can be useful for scholarly research. Both of them are used for scholarly research. Nice. All right. So again, as you can see, we talked about those primary sources, eyewitness accounts. A lot of you are probably familiar with Anne Frank's diary. That's a first primary source account, right, of how she experienced that time. Photographs and videos, secondary sources is that second step away. It occurs after, and for those of you, if you remember that flow of information, right, the first pieces of information that happen right after an event, those are your primary sources. Your news articles, your social media accounts, interviews, those things, primary sources. But as you get further and further away from the event, more information emerges, more perspectives emerge. Now we're getting secondary sources that summarize these different perspectives. So in a way, you can also think of primary sources as seeing it from somebody's viewpoint. It's one perspective, it's a very limited perspective of the people who are out there. Secondary sources tend to provide more than one perspective, okay? However, there is, as always, exceptions. Journal articles that come from researchers that talk about research will at first, in the introduction, provide a summary of the academic conversation. They will talk about maybe a couple of the different perspectives, and then they go into their actual research, their perspective, their account of the information. So it's slightly different, okay? All right. The next question. A research assignment requires you to use only sources based on evidence published in the last 20 years. If the following sources all cover your research topic, which fit the parameters of the assignment? All right. A peer-reviewed article published 22 years ago, a peer-reviewed article published 3 years ago, a video made last year that synthesizes facts from credible sources on the topic, citing its sources in the end credits, a video made last year featuring opinions of a speaker about the topic. What do you think, folks? And again, you can answer in chat and you can answer on Top Hat. Okay, I've got B and C. Anyone else? Keep going. Now, as you notice, this question is a synthesis of two things, right? Both your understanding of what is a scholarly peer-reviewed article, right? But also assignment parameters and understanding those assignment parameters, okay? We also have an answer B, C, and D. All right, let's see what it is. Okay. So, really good job, everyone. Really good job, okay? So, peer-reviewed article published 22 years ago, you're right. Can't do that because your parameters say 20. This one's too old. By the way, later on in chapter 3, you're going to learn, even if you find the perfect review article and it's too old, we'll show you techniques so that you can use that in order to find newer articles that will fit your assignment, okay? All right, peer-reviewed article published 3 years ago, you got it, because peer review means scholarly research, means based on evidence. Good job. Okay, video last year that synthesizes facts from credible sources on the topic, citing its sources in the end credits. Absolutely, right? Now, bonus question, and you guys can answer this in the chat. Is that, C, a primary or secondary source of information? Go ahead and answer in the chat, okay? And then we talked about D. A video made last year featuring opinions of a speaker about the topic, right? Isn't because opinions are not based on evidence, right? Opinions, not scholarly research, could be primary, but not scholarly. And I'm seeing everybody in the chat is saying secondary. Nice. Good, 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 good. Okay? And again, remember, this one synthesizes facts from credible sources. That means these sources were probably the primary. The synthesis of these facts from these other sources means it's got to be secondary. Okay? Cool. All right. Whoop. What did I do? Here we go. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, so we talked about primary sources, popular sources, sorry. Okay, so now we're going into another dichotomy, right? Popular sources are written for the general public. Those include newspapers, magazines, articles, books, blogs, and more, okay? So what you saw, most primary sources tend to be popular sources of information, not always, okay? Because some primary are also, if they're research papers, right, scholarly sources written by experts. These are peer-reviewed, like books, book chapters, journal articles, and conference proceedings. Not all scholarly information is peer-reviewed, but all peer-reviewed information is scholarly. And when we talk about some of these information sources in a minute, I'll go into a little bit more detail about that, okay? All right. Now, like I said, as always, if you have questions, you can type them into chat, unmute your mic, or you can wait until after the slides and I can answer them for you there too. Okay, so let's talk about research questions. A good research question should be focused, manageable, and researchable and defensible. Which of these questions is a good research question? How has technology impacted society? What is the impact of AI on energy conservation systems? What are the challenges of urbanization, and what is the most significant piece of art ever created? Here's a hint when it comes to research questions, okay? When we say focused, what we mean by that is it's based on a small researchable amount that you can answer, okay? It's manageable, which means it's not too broad, which means it's not everything pie in the sky that I can answer. It's very limited or boxed in so that you can actually answer that question with evidence that you can find, okay? And researchable and defensible. What that means is this: if it's based on somebody's opinion, it's not a good research question. You really want a research question that you can answer backed up by evidence. And this can get a little tricky, okay? So this is actually the reason why I put this question up. It's one of the ones that a lot of students miss because research questions are hard. All right, everybody ready? Okay, so I have people answering A's, B's, C's, so a little bit all over, right? Okay, so the correct answer is actually B, okay? What is the impact of AI on energy conservation systems? Now, why is this? It's because focused, manageable, and researchable and defensible, that question kind of follows all of them, and this is what I mean. Usually, especially if it's on a quiz, use the process of elimination. How has technology impacted society? Too broad. Here's why. What kind of technology are we talking about? What part of society? What kind of impact? Okay? Are we talking about American society? Are we talking about, European society? Are we talking about, agricultural technology? What kind of impact is that, right? It's too broad. We haven't defined exactly what we're trying to see, study, or answer. Okay? Now C, challenges of urbanization. Again, too broad. Urbanization means completely different things in Iowa than in California. They mean completely different things in Des Moines compared to, I'm trying to think of a really rural town in Iowa here. Urbandale or something, right? Or Boone, okay? So it's too broad, too subjective. It's not focused enough to a region, a time, a place, a specific topic. And then this last one, what is the most significant piece of art ever created, is extremely subjective, right? What do we mean by significant? What do we mean by art? Way too broad. You're going to see that in your quiz question as well. When you look at these choices, start thinking about it in that way. Can my, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, essential concepts, essential elements, be specific enough that I can really see and define it? For example, here, we're really talking about AI, right? It's specific on what? Specifically, energy conservation systems, okay? So in some cases, research questions should have some form of definition to them. All right, any questions on this one? Okay, I'm going to keep going because I'm going to give you a little bit more. Okay, cool. All right. Research questions and essential elements go hand in hand. That's why we teach you about research questions first and then those essential elements and keywords second. A research question is basically a bunch of essential elements cobbled together in order to formulate a problem that you're trying to resolve or a question you're trying to answer. So this is, I'm adding this in here because you're gonna find that specifics in page 1.7 when we talk about, well, what if, those past questions are way too broad or they're way too specific. If they're way too broad or they're way too specific, you have to examine the essential elements in the question. Those elements are who are the key players, what is the topic specifically, what's the issue, what's the important detail that's there that you're trying to look at or examine, where did it happen, where did it take place. Sometimes, and we can go back to those example research questions, if it's too broad, maybe like when we talk about urbanization, all you need is a where. Urbanization in Ames, Iowa. Okay, now that's specific enough. Now I have a good research question. Now I can answer it because it's more specific. Okay? When did things take place? Are we talking about urbanization now, modern urbanization in the 2020s? Or for some of you, if you're studying history, is it urbanization in the 1800s? Is it the industrialization era of, the 1850s, right? You want to be specific. Notice that these essential elements make that research question a lot more specific, okay? How was it done? How has the topic been perceived? When I say how was this done, I'm talking about procedures, right? How are chocolate chip cookies made? Chocolate chip cookies are made completely differently in a chocolate chip cookie factory than they are in your grandma's kitchen, right? So how, process, procedures, perceptions can add to that essential element. And then why? Why should somebody care? Why is this an important thing? And sometimes to whom is this an important thing? So these are kind of sprinkled in there to help you with not only thinking about those research questions, but also thinking about the essential elements in those questions, okay? All right. And as you're probably not surprised about, this next question is about essential elements. Why is it important to include keywords for each essential element of your topic when you search for information? Why is it important? Sorry, this is really blown up. There we go. Hopefully you can see it that way. Okay? Using every essential element is the main difference between academic research and armchair research. Using every essential element means searching according to your assignment parameters. C, only secondary sources will cover topics broadly enough to match every element. D, if you search with all the essential elements, you won't have to change your research question. Or E, leaving out an element means your search results won't focus on that part of your topic. Okay. This is what I mean when you're in the middle of your quiz, to be fully focused on taking your quiz. Don't take it in the middle of a lecture. Don't take it while you're being distracted at a party. Just spend some time and take it in focus, because it's very easy to misread these answers, okay? The other thing is, when you're approached with something like this and they all look a little bit overwhelming, start with the process of elimination. Cross out the ones that you know are definitely not it. It's going to narrow down the possibility. Although it looks like for many of you, you're already spot on. So good job. Okay. Oop, I'm going to move that up, right? Okay. So 5, leaving out an essential element means your search results won't focus on that part of your topic. Absolutely correct. Okay. Now, why isn't it A? Using every essential element is the main difference between academic research and armchair research. Actually, not true. Armchair research is just research, and If you're really good at academic research, you can still use essential elements in armchair research. The only difference sometimes is your audience, right? Or the rigor to which the sources that you're using to compile your argument, right? So essential elements really don't have anything to do with the difference between armchair and academic research. You can use them in both. Remember, essential elements are basically what are the key features of your topic that you're studying that help you narrow down the answer, okay? It's like the specific details that you're looking for, okay? Using every essential element means searching according to your assignment parameters. Right, you guys know that the essential elements don't really mean, yes, your assignment parameters may help you determine what your essential elements are, but using every essential element doesn't necessarily mean you're going to limit to just your assignment parameters, okay? See, only secondary sources will cover topics broadly enough to match every element. I am glad you didn't fall for that, because essential elements will give you both primary and secondary resources, and based on your assignment, they are both appropriate for your research. D, if you search with all essential elements, you won't have to change your research question. It sounds like that would be a good answer, but the reason why it's not is because you may have the perfect essential elements and you do your research, and in your pre-searching, the stuff that you come up with is not what you necessarily may want to study, or you find out that the stuff you come up with isn't really what you want to answer. It's not answering your question, or there's not enough of it, or the information that you find doesn't fit the parameters of your assignment. In any of those cases, you actually have to go back and change your research question. And it's perfectly normal to change your research question. Like, you can change it a lot. Researchers change it a lot. Either to make it fit with what they're trying to really find out, or to adjust it so that it fits the assignment parameters. Okay? Questions on this? All right, I'm going to keep going. Okay. Essential elements, one of the harder things that students understand, because it is a little bit abstract, and it just takes going through questions and being exposed to this for a while, and then it'll make sense. It's almost like a sense for what they are in a research question, okay? This is actually the reason why when you're like boots to the ground doing a research assignment or a project, you're not alone. You can go to librarians like me, and we can help you with fine-tuning those essential elements, okay? So this is so that you're aware and familiar and you know essential elements, but then in your assignments, you are perfectly fine. You should go out and seek help from your librarians and from your instructors to help you with this information, okay? But one of the librarians, Mrs. Chris Stacy Bates, she's one of our subject librarians, might be one of yours, said, understanding essential elements is like going online to find a specific piece of clothing. Okay, so say for instance, I want to find this specific piece of clothing online. I want to buy it, okay? The details that you put in your search are the essential elements. So think about it. In this case, what would you put in? And please put it in chat for me or unmute your mic. What would be your search terms to try and find this online? What would be important that you would put in a search? And for those of you who are unsure, you can actually open a Google and try it. Okay, so I've got here, Iowa State football overalls for game day. Nice. So think about that. Iowa State is an essential element, right? Because if you don't have Iowa State although there's other different ways you can do essential elements, you may not find the same colors, right? Overalls, right? These are overalls. If I put dress, that essential element is going to completely change what I'm finding, right? So overalls is an essential element, okay? So yes, definitely, Emma. Garen says, describe what it looks like. Absolutely. But what in that description is important? Like, what's the essential element in those descriptions? Selena says, Iowa State game day overall. So game day might be an important essential element, right? Ciara says, Cyclones jumpsuit. Good. Garen says, red and yellow striped overalls. Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. Notice that there's not just one answer to this. There's not just one key word that you can use to actually find these overalls. And that's kind of the other point that we want to make here. Some of you may just put in Cyclone's jumpsuit maybe, and it just brings it up like that. Others of you, like if you put red and yellow striped overalls, you're still going to find it, but you may have to sift through other results, potentially, or not, to be able to do it. Will Cyclones jumpsuit, will red and yellow striped overalls, will Iowa State game day overalls, will Iowa State football overalls for game day bring you the same results? Yeah, it probably will, okay? The idea is, again, we want you to kind of just develop that skill to understand, though, when I see something, when I have a topic like this, what keywords can I use so I can find those results rather quickly? Okay? And sometimes, so here's the other thing. Say, for instance, and this is a total analogy, all right? Say, for instance, I'm going in there and I'm typing in red and yellow striped overalls. And I get a bunch of different results of these overalls that are indeed red and yellow striped overalls. But they may not be exactly the match that I'm looking for. And the reason why could be because the actual overall name is called the Cyclones jumpsuit. Yes, you will eventually find it, but they categorize this under Cyclones jumpsuit, okay? As a researcher, there's going to be moments where you won't have time to sift through 10,000 results. You want to find just Cyclones jumpsuit, just that, to get exactly what you need. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but I'm saying one keyword search may give you 10,000 results and the other may give you 3, and all 3 are exactly what you need. That's what you're going to learn in chapters 2 and 3. Okay? Right now, we just want you to get this feel for what essential elements will do for you. Essential elements and keywords are going to show you how to bring up the results that are specific to what you need. Okay? Whoop, I keep clicking out like that. Okay. Nice. Okay. So you kind of have the idea of essential elements now, I think. You're feeling it, right? So here's an essential elements question. What are the essential elements for the research topic, occupational impact of the Great Depression on Iowa farmers? A, occupational impact, Great Depression, Iowa farmers. B, agriculture, 1930s, impact, Great Depression. C, Iowa Depression farmers. Or D, occupational impact, Iowa and farmers. Right? And again, you have to think, if I put these in a search word, what is it going to look like? Nice, everyone. Okay. So almost all of you. Oh, and this one, of course, I forgot to put the right or wrong answer, but it is A. Good. Now, I think that's helpful, right? Because think about it this way. you're looking specifically for the occupational impact, like the what, right? Or the why that it matters, right? Great Depression is a specific topic, and Iowa farmers, that's who gets impacted. Do you see? So this is where, like, if you kind of overlap the who, what, where, how, when to your topic, it kind of helps you figure out what those essential elements are. But the other thing with that is the essential elements, whatever element you put in, is going to completely change your search results. And you have to ask yourself, if I put that essential element in, if I put that keyword in, is it going to give me what I want, right? Now, if I put B, agriculture 1930s impact and Great Depression, it may give me some of what A is, but it's going to give me a lot that's not, right? Like 1930s and agriculture. That's a lot of things coming down to, like, even what was grown in the 1930s, right? And what kind of impact are we talking about here during the Great Depression? Here, Iowa Depression and farmers, again, depression has multiple meanings, right? If I just put depression, I can look at probably statistics for farmers who are depressed in Iowa and how many are there, and probably now in the 2020s, who knows? Occupational impact, Iowa, farmers, again, is going to give you probably not Iowan farmers, but maybe farmers related to Iowa, doing commerce in Iowa, who knows, right? So again, you may, with these quiz questions, work backwards, look at the answers and think about, or even try it in Google. Throw these keywords into Google, see what the results are, and see if they're giving you the right results for what you're looking for. Because what you'll notice is this: when you're writing research questions, when you're writing topics, you'll have a sense for what kind of information you need to answer your question. Your keywords, your essential elements, will give you the results, and those results will give you the sense of whether or not there's a good fit. If there's not, that's when you go back. Do I change my question? Do I change my keywords? Do I change where I'm looking? Those are the things that you're going to be learning in this class, okay? All right. Okay, flow of information. We talked a little bit about, you're going to get a flow of information question in a minute. Think of flow of information. We've talked about this with primary and secondary sources. It's a timeline. When the event first occurs, almost all of these are primary sources of information. Within a week later, you're still going to get some primary sources of information, right? But now you're going to get analysis. You're going to get people being interviewed on the news who are synthesizing some of the primary reports, some more information, right? A month later, magazine articles, bigger issues that are doing a bigger bird's eye synthesis. Afterwards, about a year later, are the journal articles, reports, and conference proceedings. Why? Because the peer review process takes a long time. That's why, okay? And then several years later are when your books and book chapters will hit. Why is this important? Let's take a look at this next question. Your research assignment requires you to study an event. You may only use scholarly sources of information. Which of the following events would be appropriate for your assignment? Okay, so we've got, think about the flow of information now and what kinds of information come out. A, the Burning Man event occurred last week in Black Rock City, Nevada. B, last month's discovery of an ancient building at a construction site in the middle of Newark, New Jersey. C, the GameStop share rally that occurred in 2021 due to publicity on Reddit. Or D, the landing of Odysseus, the first private aircraft to land on the moon in February 22nd, 2024. Okay, remember, you may only use scholarly sources of information. And I gave you a tip from last time when we talked about flow of information and how scholarly sources are created. Okay? Okay, ready? And I know we're going over, and that's perfectly fine. If you have to go ahead and go. I will have this recorded for you, okay? All right, we've got a number of you that have answered A, C, and D. And so we're going to talk about this in a minute. Okay, remember, the event that occurred last week, you're going to see more primary sources, news, first-hand accounts, social media, but not scholarly sources, because scholarly sources take more time, right? In a week, you're getting more perspective, less analysis. Bye, Garen. Thank you for coming. Okay, and those of you that have to go, thanks for coming, okay? Again, this will be recorded, so you won't miss anything. All right. B, last month's discovery of an ancient building. You guys all got that? Didn't fall for that one? You're right. No scholarly sources. These two kind of fall in the same category, okay? Too new for scholarly articles to come out. This occurred in 2021, and that is the correct answer, right? This is over a year ago, and so it's had time for peer-reviewed information. And so, yes, you're going to get more on this. Okay, February 22nd, 2024 is in this year, right? So you may get 1 or 2 articles, maybe, but not as many as C, okay? Now, again, why is this important? In your classes, especially in your English and speech classes, even education actually, you're going to be doing research assignments and you will get to pick the topic. You want to think about your assignment parameters. If your topic is asking for scholarly resources, then you may want to pick an event that happened later, right? Like earlier, over a year ago or so, okay? Now, if you're looking at current issues, if you're looking at, perspectives and perceptions and things like that, then you can choose an event that's a little bit early on. So either one of those, again, will help you determine what you would like to do for your research, okay? All right, I'm going to keep going. Okay, slide 15. Which of these item records describes a scholarly journal article, and how do you know? All right. So actually, I'm going to show this one. I'm going to skip this. Woo! We do. Okay. So you've got 4 different item records here. Okay? And we're asking which one is a scholarly journal. Now, how you determine this is taking a look at so let me back up. An item record is what your database produces in order to tell you what that information source is about. This is what it looks like when you use quick search in the library, okay? You get all of these kind of different posts. Now, in that information source, you will notice that there is description, some information about it in the item record. So for example, up here, you can see in A, it is a magazine article. B, a book. C, an article. And D, a conference proceeding, okay? If we're looking for journal articles, notice C is the journal article, so the answer would be C. Okay, let me keep going, all right? And for those of you who are left, if you want to just go ahead and type in chat or unmute your mic, please do so, okay? Since this is going to be recorded and a lot of people are going to watch it afterwards, I'm going to keep going and discussing, but I do want to answer your questions if you have any. All right, let's take a look at information sources really quickly. And the reason why is because understanding the sources of information that scholars use in their research projects is extremely important. One, because your assignment parameters will tell you specifically what sources you can and cannot use. But the other thing is, by knowing what information source you're looking for, by the way, the sound in the background is my dog. I apologize. She sometimes gets snippy when I'm on Zoom too long. Okay, anyways, all right. What was I going to say? Okay. By knowing the information source you need, you will go to the specific database that has it. All right? Here's a spoiler alert for Module 2. Google is not the end-all be-all because it is very bad at finding scholarly journals. However, thank you, Angel. Journal articles are really easy to find when you're using the library quick search or when you're using our articles databases. So being able to tell the difference between all of these things is extremely important. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this, which is the front cover of, the top homepage of the Ames Tribune, a newspaper. All right. Now, why are newspapers important? Why are they primary sources of information? Because they are written the day of, okay, or I should say the stories come out on the day. So every day there is a different story. Why is this important? Because when you're looking at item records in the database, or when you're looking at citations, which we'll talk about more in Chapter 3, newspapers will always include a full date, the day, the month, and the year. A lot of other publications will not, okay? That's the newspaper article. All right. Now, the one that students get really hung up on when it comes to information sources is journal articles, conference proceedings, and book chapters. So I'm going to go into those in a lot more detail here, okay? I want you to think about journal articles. I want you to think about journals like they are magazines. And in fact, they are. So here, whoa, it's blurry. Oh, I didn't expect it to be blurry. Here we go. Here is a magazine, right? I just picked it up at Hy-Vee, Better Homes and Gardens, Christmas Ideas. These are also magazines, Illinois Tech Magazine and Time, right? These are, quick review, right? Popular information sources, right? Magazines. We're all familiar with magazines, okay? Journals, scholarly journals, are basically magazines written by scholars, written by academics. So Nature is a scholarly journal. The Journal of the American Medical Association is another scholarly journal. So journals are the scholarly form of magazines. And what does that mean? That means that magazines have articles, magazine articles, and journals also have articles, journal articles. Notice they look, right, like magazine articles, journal articles. Notice they look slightly different. They look a little bit more boring. Why? Because magazine articles are written for the general public, popular. They're meant to be entertaining and informative. Scholarly journal articles are not so much about entertaining as much as informing. It's about teaching and providing knowledge, okay, a specific knowledge base. They're written by experts for experts, but they're organized in the same way, okay? When I look in a magazine, I have magazine articles, right? Written throughout this are magazine articles. Journal, I know it's blurry, but journal articles in here, okay? Organized in the same way. All right, so you've got magazine articles, you've got journal articles, and then you have books. Now, we're used to popular books. I'm sure many of you are familiar with, say, Harry Potter, which is a popular book written for a general audience, right? And you are probably also familiar with certain scholarly books, okay? The scholarly books on the left are probably the ones that you're most familiar with, written by one author. These are usually by one author. They're an expert. That book provides a synopsis of the topic they're talking about, but then they present their research, their perspective, their viewpoint, their approach on that research. That is a one author or maybe two or three author scholarly book. And again, all the chapters written by the same person. Like in here, it was by Dr. Shirley Bryce Heath, right? Now, the scholarly books you're probably not as familiar with is this one, where you have, instead of authors, you have editors, and you have more than one multiple authors, okay? So in this book, right, Fandom Unbound, Otaku Culture in a Connected World, edited by Mizuko Ito, Daisuke Okabe, and Izumi Suji, forgive my pronunciation, right? These are editors, not authors. Here's what I mean, and here's why that happens this way. Okay. First, you take your professor, the one person, the one researcher who says, hey, I have an idea. I want to write, or I want a book that captures the academic conversation around this topic. So these kinds of scholarly books are not about presenting one perspective from one expert. This is about gathering multiple perspectives from experts, all experts on the topic, and putting it into a handy dandy book for you. Okay? So this is the editor. They're now the editor, and they're saying, I have this idea and I want to create a book on this topic that captures the academic conversation. Okay, so this person does what's called a call for papers. They reach out to all their colleagues and experts on that topic and they say, hey, I want to write this book. Will you write a chapter about your perspective, your research on this topic for me? Okay, so each one of these folks is a researcher, an academic that has a certain perspective about the topic. And what they're going to do is write a chapter that presents their perspective, their research on it. Okay? When that happens, they submit those chapters to the editor. And the editor looks at those chapters and they say, okay, this is going to fit. I'm going to put it in the introduction. This is going to fit. This is going to be in the middle section. And then this is going to go at the end. And no, I don't think this one fits right now. So why don't you go and put that in a journal article? But this is what I'm going to have for my book. They edit it, they put it together, and then they publish the book. All right? So these scholarly books here capture the entire conversation around a topic. Okay. The reason why that's important is because that's why book chapters look different. Here is the cover of this book, and when you look in the table of contents, notice that they have different authors, because each author is a researcher presenting their perspective on this topic right here, Fandom Unbound. Okay, and these three editors, Ito, Okabe, and Suji, collected and curated and edited all of these chapters to put them in the book. That's why they're different, and that's the reason why when you are doing scholarly research, you are going to see in scholarly research book chapters. Oftentimes, academics don't read the whole book. What we do is we pull out the chapter that we want and we use that in our research papers. Saves a lot of time. Okay? All right, so here's another one that you're going to probably see on your quiz questions. Not the same one, obviously, but this is another item record. And the question is, what is the title of this journal? Remember, journal is a magazine, right? Journal article, articles also called scholarly papers sometimes, is the individual articles within the magazine. Okay? All right. In this case, the title that occurs first is the name of the article. The journal magazine that is found is right here. So what's the title of this journal? Censors. Okay? All right. I'm going to skip that. Okay. So I just want to show you another thing, conference proceedings. Conference proceedings look very, very similar to journals. They look almost identical, but they're created differently. Journals are basically created almost the same way that scholarly books with editors are. People who have conversations about the topic, submit their papers to be reviewed, peer reviewed, okay, by a panel to determine whether or not it belongs in the journal, to determine whether or not it becomes an article in the journal. That's how those are created. Conference proceedings are created in a slightly different way. A conference is basically a gathering of these academics, and they do literally have academic conversations about a topic, okay? And they present their work individually in conference sessions. So really imagine a bunch of people gathering together in these giant rooms. Sometimes at the university we have conferences too. The experts get together, they have these academic conversations, share their knowledge, learn from each other, and then they all go home. The conference proceeding is a record of that giant meeting that everybody had. Okay, so here AIP Publishing Conference Proceedings is a written record of this meeting of the 15th International Scientific Conference on Aeronautics, Automotive, and Railway Engineering and Technologies. Okay? They met in Bulgaria in September 2023, September 10th through the 13th, 2023, to have these conversations. So the individual, they still look like journal articles. They look identical. Individual articles that are found in a conference proceeding are the individual presenters who presented at that conference. They look identical to journal articles, okay? They can be treated in that such way too. But a conference proceeding will always have the word conference. They'll always have some keywords in there, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. Oh, it's not. That's the end of my presentation. Okay, so let me go back. All right, conference proceedings will have words like annals, proceedings, annual meeting, symposium. There are some keywords that will tell you that this is a conference proceeding. Same with these journal articles, these conference proceedings, okay, they won't be called journal articles. They'll be called proceedings, okay? Also, conference proceedings are not necessarily peer-reviewed like journal articles are. They can be, though, because normally when somebody wants to present at a conference, they have to submit their paper first, and a panel determines whether or not this person gets to present at the conference, okay? All right, so here's the thing that I want you to notice, okay? I just went over all of kind of the rough spots that students will have for chapter 1, but also gave you a little bit of knowledge to make modules 2 and 3 a little bit easier for you. When you are doing your quiz, like I said before, I strongly suggest after viewing this video or even way before, do your first attempt, see where you stand, go back, do your research, ask your questions, and then do attempts 2 and 3. Don't wait until the last minute for that, okay? You can always ask for help. My contact information will be in the YouTube when this gets listed. You should also just reach out to your instructor who really knows you a lot better if you're not in my section, and who can provide that feedback and help for you, okay? You're going to see this video like all of the other videos in the Parks Library channel. I highly suggest liking this recording and subscribing so you can get all of the other videos that go into this playlist. Because throughout this semester, I'm going to be, and a couple of us are going to be adding to this channel to help you with your studies. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope this helped you. If it didn't, please reach out, get the help that you need, and I will see you next week. Bye.